beast. This is going to sound crazy, but there's only one reason why I got back into Sonic after dropping it at around like that middle school age, and it's because of Ghost Town and Sonic Forces. I know you like, huh? Forces? What are you talking about, bro? It's classic Sonic and Forces, really? But it was Christmas and my cousin got Forces. I haven't played a Sonic game in years at that point, and I was hearing all the crap about it, and I was curious. I loved creating an avatar, but Sonic felt so atrocious after like my last game I really played with the adventure games, and I was overall just having a very middling experience until I got to Ghost Town. Now, I had never owned or really played a classic Sonic game. I think I played Mushroom Hill at the dentist like once, but so I have no reference for how classic Sonic should feel or control. But at that point, that's like the third stage in the game, and I had obviously S rank to every stage before that, but this is the one that I missed, so I ended up replaying it, and I began crafting a route. I had already got the S rank again at this point, but a part of me really wanted to make it through the entire thing without messing up, and it was a little tricky. Because you know, with classic Sonic, you have to memorize the stage at some points. You have to make some blind jumps, as well as timing your jumps so you don't slow down. And so I spent like an hour on Christmas Day sitting there trying to perfect a classic Sonic stage in Forces. And say what you want about him, which yes, I agree he shouldn't have been in the game in the first place, but I really do love that damn stage. And when I gave the game back to my cousin, I was low-key sad because I wanted more and I wanted to do that mess some more. I'm probably the first person who played Forces, much less classic Sonic and Forces, and wanted more from it. Now, of course, this was all because I created value in that stage. I saw the potential the stage had if I were able to enter the flow state and beat it perfectly, even though it's pretty much meaningless because I already S-ranked it ages ago. And I had a really great time doing it. It felt good to master a stage and go beast mode. I had fun. But again, I thought to do it all out of internal satisfaction. Now just imagine for a second, if the S-rank requirements were stricter, there probably would have been way more people like me who would have replayed that stage, because most people will just replay it until they get an S rank. Some people don't care at all, they will never replay it, but especially when a stage feels easy and you don't get that S rank, that's something that encourages people to replay the stage when they normally wouldn't. Even Sandhill, the first stage, a nothing burger of a first stage, would at least be like 10% more engaging if you were to do that easy stage with almost no engagement, no anything to even do in there, and you were to get to the end and you'll be like, wow, I really didn't S rank that. And so then at the very least, there's still little things that you could correct in order to make sure you make that on time, which increases the value of the stage. And this is all outside of moon medals, bingo cards, red rings, which although they do add replay value and encourage exploration, they don't ask you to master the stage and to dominate it and to know it inside and out. Lax S rank requirements is probably one of the worst things you could ever put in a Sonic game. Sonic Generations, Sonic Forces, Sonic Frontiers, and yes, even Shadow Generations from what it's looking like. Because on Choctopus's gameplay, he got an A rank, and it said that he needed to get 5 minutes and 31 seconds in order to get S rank. But then you see this fool game stage, and this fool beat the stage in 4 minutes and 27 seconds. So fool beat the stage almost a minute faster than the S rank requirement. Yes, I know, things aren't final. Oh, it's still in development, it's just a demo. Of course, we've heard these things many times before, not just in Sonic, but in gaming in general. But bro, come on, like, how many times do we see these types of things just to find out that they're there at the end anyway? Of course, I love me some coping, you know I love to cope, and I'm still going to hope they have some very strict times, especially knowing how much people loved 1-2 in Sonic Frontiers, but I guess we'll just have to see. Having an easy S rank decreases replay value because you are already telling the player that you peaked at that stage. You've done the best you possibly could. You did it, woohoo! There's no point besides internal satisfaction to try to know it inside and out. Like, what's the point of learning a stage and all its intricacies and all its secrets and all its alternate pathways if you already got an S rank and you already got rewarded for your run? I'm also not the biggest fan of having the S rank being tied to difficulty level. As I mentioned before, in Frontiers, almost every stage except for 1-2 and some others had extremely easy and forgiving S rank times. I watched so many streamers cheer and pat themselves on the back in those first few cyberspace stages and Kronos Island because they were so happy to get that S rank, especially with 1-2, with how much people had to work to get it. People were legit happy to see the S rank, and all of that always faded away once they got into a stage and they died, or they did this, or they're really slow. And you could even see them be commenting on it and be like, oh, I got an S. It's like everyone has the same reaction. They're all like a little confused, and it just takes away like all that magic from enjoying the stage. With the first DLC drop, they added extreme mode to the game, which actually had stricter S rank times, which I was so happy about. But bro, I don't want to play on extreme mode, aka the one-hit kill mode, just to have satisfying S rank times for these stages. And even then, some of them still weren't that strict. Of course, I would love if they added those times to hard mode, but in reality, I want S rank times to be challenging regardless of difficulty. I don't care if you're playing on easy mode, you still shouldn't be rewarded for chewing on your controller and barely getting to the end of the stage. Even a little 6-year-old playing on easy mode, I'm sure a lot of them can eventually get some S ranks on some genuinely challenging stages after repeat playthroughs. I know 6 sounds a little young, but they were full 6 years old beating classic Sonic games, because there's some adults that can barely beat some classic Sonic games. I finally played Sonic Origins this year, and I was shocked that people were children playing this game. This also may be a bit controversial, but I most definitely believe that scores could come into play when getting your S rank, not just pure speed and timing. I do see both sides of the argument, because I don't really like the idea of getting a slow time, stopping myself purposely to hunt down every enemy, go through every hoop, and still getting an S rank for that. But at the same time, if a stage only focuses on time, then enemies, rings, capsules, hell, even the level design is pointless. And I say that because then you are encouraged to just skip over everything. Imagine if in Final Rush and Sonic Adventure 2, the A rank was for time. You would just spin that jump off the stage over and over and over again and ignore everything. Even when you watch people speedrun 1-2 or speedrun cyberspace stages, fools be doing the homing dash all over the stage and be ignoring everything, or just boost jumping over everything. And I think you should get S ranks for mastery, not just speed. Just because you jump past it doesn't really mean you know the stage. You express mastery by navigating through the level design, even the most difficult parts, as efficiently and perfectly as possible. It's why the action chain challenges were so much fun in Sonic Frontiers. That's essentially how score-based rankings work. You grind rails, you try to get combos, you try to collect as many rings as you can, you look for secrets, you kill enemies, things of that nature. I think there's a way to satisfy both philosophies. Even though Sonic Colors does have a challenging ranking system, I personally wouldn't want to go their way about getting an S rank. I don't understand the game as well as I understand the adventure games, but at least for me, I feel like I can't really get an S rank unless I prioritize collecting red rings. Like if you just go throughout the stage and you just kill every enemy you see and go as fast as possible, you're not going to get a very good rank. A big way to get a high rank in this game is you have to interact with the wisps. I guess that's that way of like interacting with the level design, I guess, because you get a lot of score bonus for using colors powers, but then you really have to find the red rings. If you go throughout a stage and you don't find a single red ring, most of the time you're not going to get a very good score. And like I get it to an extent, like I do like the idea of the red rings giving you points, just like capsules or 1-ups give you points. At the same time, like I don't like being forced to explore when I'm trying to get my S rank. I'm really trying to focus on speed and score like combined, but you're forcing me to like deviate too much from the route, like mixing it up and having to get enemies here and there, or having to go sideways a little bit, but making me go in circles on different stages where my time is nowhere going to be near my fastest time. I don't really like that. And don't get me wrong, I do appreciate like exploring and getting a lot of points and going throughout every nook and cranny of the stage. I'll get into that idea a little later on in the video, but for S ranks, I'm not a big fan. Like even the way you would go about trying to speedrun a stage or get an S rank in a stage like Sonic Forces of all games, feels nothing like trying to do it in Sonic Colors. Like I've tried to like optimize my movement a little bit for little skips here and there, and then I realized, okay, actually I can't do that at all because I need to be using my wisp there instead and go dig around in the dirt and take all these slower paths just so I can interact with the red ring. And I think Sonic Adventure 1 has a good ranking system as well. I assume it's pretty similar to Sonic Adventure 2, but the thing is, I could never find that mess when I was a kid, which is crazy because I played Sonic Adventure 2 first and then went to 1.
like all the other Sonic games, like the more modern Sonic games that have your rank up in your face, it's easy to see that and go, okay, let me do the stage again, or let me go a little faster, let me try to do it again just so I can get the pretty letter by my stage. Do they have a ranking system on Sonic Adventure 1? Even to this day, I still don't really know. If they do have a ranking system, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it might as well be a lax one.
The Sonic Adventure 2 ranking system, which most would agree is the most satisfying and best ranking system that we have for replay value. I think that should be the ranking system that we try to implement in our future Sonic games and build upon it, because it's definitely not perfect. Look at my gameplay of City Escape. I ignore all the enemies, I only grind rails that help me go faster, I ignore all gold beetles and most of the capsules. I got a crazy insane time, right? B rank, boy, and that's being nice. You try to pull this little stunt on Metal Harbor or do that on Final Rush or Pyramid Cave, and you gonna get that D. For damn! Now watch as I take a whole 40 extra seconds to get everything. I'm going off the main track just to make sure I'm killing these enemies and swinging on these hoops, swinging on these poles, and wow, A rank. A for, I guess so. This has to do with the time multiplier bonus not really being that strong. The simplest fix would probably be just to make the score multiplier stronger, but I also want a system where you need that time bonus to win. So how do we juggle that? The way these stages work is that they give you lots of opportunity for score. Ring capsules, 1-ups, gold beetles, light speed dashes, rings, combos, hoops, poles, tricks. There's always more than enough objects in the stage in order for you to get your S rank, your A rank, which I definitely agree with doing. And there is merit to that kind of gameplay, don't get me wrong. There's like the opposite of speedrunners. There's like the score attack speedrunners, who their whole purpose is basically to get like the max points that you can as fast as possible. You could argue those are some people who really have that stage mastered because they know where everything is and they try to consolidate every single movement just to make sure they keep the combo going. It kind of makes you wish that these games had two different ranking systems, like maybe a time-based ranking system and a score-based ranking system.
I think most Sonic games do keep track of your highest score, and they keep track of your fastest time completed as well. But I think we officially need 2 leaderboards. Actually, 3 leaderboards, because there are 3 different ways that you can approach the stage. You can either be the score attacker, and you can just try to get as many points as possible. There's the speedrunner, which is just trying to get through the stage as fast as possible. And then there's the S rank, which is combining both of them together. 3 different forms of mastery that I think are all valuable ways to play the game. I think leaderboards, like for S rank or for speedrunners, is obvious how I would do rankings. Just the fastest person to get the S rank or the fastest person to clear the stage is obviously the person at the top of the leaderboard. But how would score attack be? Is it just the person who gets the most amount of points ever? The way that the score attackers seem to do in that speedrun category is they have like a set score that seems to be like the max score that it seemed possible to get in the game, and it's just a matter of who's the fastest to be able to get it. So I think if we were to have online leaderboards, I don't think it's wise for Sonic Team to make a leaderboard or to make a category and say, oh, get 5 million points on this stage, as if that's like the max, because maybe they think that's the max, but in reality it's not. So I think the way the score attack ranking system would go is just that they would just have the leaderboards with fools with the highest score, and then people who have the same score, the person who did it faster would just be ranked above them. Maybe along with the score, you do have the time it took to complete the stage next to it. So the time only really comes into place when people have the exact same score. I know that score isn't really like the most popular way to play the game, and I think like that score attack community is kind of small, but I think they're completely valid, and it's extremely fascinating when you watch them fools work, because the way they think about the game is just completely different. If you watch somebody play Crazy Gadget, that mug looks ridiculous because you would never play that stage that way. You would never think to play that stage naturally. And even though we have the 3 leaderboards out the way, we still need to figure out the best way to do the S rank.
So of course, the thing we could do is try to adjust the time bonus multiplier so that if you're going just based off of pure speed, then maybe you're not going to be getting an A rank in Sonic Adventure 2, but you're not getting no D rank. But then if you have a really strong score multiplier, then it could make A ranks too easy. You know what I'm saying? It's like a very hard way to balance it, because then it's, oh, what if you do? I think the bare minimum
you would of enemies and things like that you need to destroy, I think it would be, if you have a strong time bonus, it would be like very easy, because there are enemies and there are certain objects that you have to interact with to get through the game. And so it's a very fine line of having to balance the time bonus multiplier with the level design. This is why I think we should adopt Sonic Adventure 1's time bonus system. What Sonic Adventure 2 does is that they subtract points past every second you go past 1 minute on the timer. So eventually you will reach down to a 0 time bonus. But what Sonic Adventure 1 does is that they give you a flat time bonus depending on the amount of time you took per stage. So if you got below a minute on the stage, you will always get a 5,000 point time bonus no matter what stage you're on. I like this idea, but it should be adjusted for each stage. Not every stage is built the same. And if we want to make S ranks that make sense and make it engaging for every stage, we have to take account the stage's length and their difficulty.
Where SA2 fails is that because they of course give an overabundance of enemies and things to interact with to ensure you get that good rank, the A ranks are very easy for the majority of the speed stages if you go for the stage mastery. So if we were to apply that to a new ranking system for Shadow Generations, neither by themselves will net you an S rank. If you play as a speedrunner to S rank, you got to figure out how to incorporate a certain amount of enemies into your route to get that S rank, while the stage master has to figure out how to optimize and be fast enough to kill all the enemies in time to get the minimum speed bonus it needs in order to S rank. And obviously the point of these stages isn't always just get an A rank, right? You want to put extra stuff into the stage because you're expecting people, especially newcomers or first time players or kids, you're expecting them to get hit, you're expecting them to die, and you don't want them to always get an E rank every single time. So you have to put an overabundance of things. That's a great thing about exploring, is finding all of these capsules and gold beetles or alternate paths where there are enemies waiting, things of that nature. That stuff is really important. And that's why the ranking is so difficult to try to balance. Because if you try too hard to balance for that, that's when you will get the cyberspace stages and Sonic Frontiers, where there will be like 3 enemies per stage. There's no secrets, no hidden things. There's no point in really exploring except for maybe finding different paths. But all these collectibles and points, that's what makes exploring worth it. So maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe this is probably something that someone's already came up with before. This actually could be implemented. I don't know enough about these games' ranking systems. Since we have this balancing act between speed and points, between time bonus and level design, instead of having to just raw combine those numbers together in order to get the S rank requirements. So for S rank, there's a general time you must reach for S rank, and there's a general score requirement that you must reach for S rank. That could be a very interesting thing. So maybe if you go extremely fast, you don't do anything, no matter what you do, if you don't reach that score point requirement, even if you do reach the time requirement, but if you don't reach the score requirement, you don't get an S. And same thing the other way around. If you get all the enemies, you do all the things, but you don't get into the time requirement, then you don't get an S. I don't like the idea of that for the lower ranks. So maybe that's a separate thing. Maybe the time and the scores for anything below an S rank, that can just stay the way it normally is, right? Because like I said, it's mostly the people who are practicing or the people who are not that good at the game, that they're the ones who are going to be getting the low ranks. And you don't necessarily want to finish every stage with an E rank or with a D rank, right? It does feel bad to see that blue E rank on the screen, especially when you know you were struggling and the stage was taking 10 minutes long. Because when you think about it, every stage that has an S rank, or at least a strict S rank in whatever game, there's an ideal way to play the stage that the devs have envisioned. Let's take a great example, one of the best A ranks in Sonic Adventure 2, Metal Harbor. Most people who play Metal Harbor get a C rank, and it's mainly because they don't get to the very top of the rocket. That's like the biggest source of points in the entire stage. There's a lot of capsules and some secret areas in Metal Harbor, and there are fighter jets flying around that you have to jump up and catch to get those points. And all of that is the developer's intention showing through. They have a route planned for you essentially, and you're basically just trying to rehearse that. Metal Harbor is kind of like a dance. You have all the steps laid out for you to do,
and all you have to do is perform them. It's an A rank that a lot of people really like, and it's very rigid. It's not like some of these other stages where there's a lot of different kind of ways you can go about getting the A rank. No, this is the way you have to do it, and there's no arguing about it. It is very similar to 1-2 in cyberspace. We're not talking about the homing dash or the magnet dash, whatever that mess is called. There's basically a specific way to go about that stage that is like the objectively fastest way to go. And for the most part, those things are very enjoyable. That's most people's favorite stage of the game. Not even because the level design is that great, but because of the requirements that you have to do. And I really like and kind of don't like this approach. I say that because in order to do that, it limits creativity. It limits creativity, and it kind of forces you down a linear path. And I love linear gameplay. If you make some good level design and it's linear, it just feels more engaging to me. There's a lot of potential for that kind of thinking when it comes with S ranks, but something that feels amazing is to overcome that. It's to say, actually, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to carve my own path away from your linear route that you made for me. And deviating from that and doing your own thing, adding your own flair, or going other ways, or mixing and matching routes, is something that is really awesome and creative. And it's something that I really like to do. This is something what I'm going to talk about in my future video that I'll be dropping about difficulty in Sonic games. One thing that I've always kind of envisioned is how rings and boost work in Sonic stages. Because in traditional boost games, rings give you your boost gauge, right? And there's generally plenty of rings for you to always have your boost basically filled up in almost every situation. You know, if you're playing perfectly, if you're playing good and you're familiar with the stage, you're never gonna run out of boost. But imagine a stage where rings are scarce. And if you want to keep your boost alive, you have to collect every ring. And in that scenario, that means that the developers have the chance to be very strategic about where they place rings. And the ring placement can guide the players around specific routes and really force you to play perfectly if you want to keep that flow state up. And so I think ultimately I do like the idea of having two different requirements to be combined for the S rank. I essentially think of it as two goals you must meet in order to reach the ultimate goal. And although I do have my concerns about linearity and creativity and things like that, I think that depending on the stage, that can work. The linear can work, but also you can make stages with S ranks that are a little looser when it comes with your freedom in making your decisions. It's already the case. Like I said, we have Metal Harbor, which is you have to play the way the devs want you to play. That is how you get the A rank, and that's fine. But then you also have stages like Final Rush. Final Rush has a very strict A rank, but the level is so open, there's plenty of ways to cut corners and to deviate from that path just because the stage is so big. There's a lot of capsules and things like that, a lot of things that you can mix and match, which allows for that creativity to flow. So maybe there won't be as big of an issue as I was initially worried about. I think just on the fly, it kind of made me nervous, but the way you compensate for that is just to make bigger stages. Another great example that we have for a stage ranking is Pyramid Cave. Pyramid Cave does have its issues with ranking when it comes to the speed aspect of it, because like I said, if you ignore everything, you're not going to get a good score, which I don't like. But there's actually a lot of stuff in Pyramid Cave. There's a lot of ways to kind of get that A rank. That's the linear ways, but there's also a lot on the outside. So a lot of people do not know this at the beginning, but these hoops are not just random rings for whatever. You get points by going through them. You're not supposed to just run past here. You're supposed to try to hit every hoop you can. And when you get the combination of it, you get like a lot of points at the end. One of the things I love about Sonic Adventure 2 that I admittedly did not really know about till like a year ago was I love doing these super bounces. I don't even know what the mess is called, but that's when you charge up a spin dash, and as soon as you hit the wall, if you jump and then bounce, then it just flings you up into the air. And so I kind of like slide my thumb from A to B and like make it like there's like that flicking sound when you slide your thumb over the top of both of them. But that's one of the reasons why I think the stage is so great, is just hitting that freaking super bounce. This is another big difference you can see between like a score attack mindset and a speed mindset. is that there are all these enemies that the speed would just skip over. And when you look at them side by side, it really does help build the case a little bit for trying to just go for speed by itself. Because attacking enemies is fun sometimes. Like I do, like I said, I see both sides. Awesome. Here we have another skip. This is where you can do the super bounce over this wall that has no collision, I guess. At least I think what's going to happen. I saw somebody do that on Twitter and I wanted to do it too. But you see, a lot of these places where they're putting skips, I like how there's spots where there's not really enemies, or it's like where you don't have to make the sacrifices. But to A rank this stage, you don't have to do anything down here. You can just rail past all of this. But you see, there's like a whole nother section of this game where there's enemies and there's ramps and stuff like that most people have never even experienced. And here we get to the second hallway. I'm pretty sure that you don't have to do the hoops in that first hallway, but like you could have easily like jumped down over that one pit where the rail was and kill all those extra enemies, or maybe kill the other enemies at other spots. Like, you know, there's plenty of opportunities for points. In the ideal world, like I think for Sonic Adventure 2 in general, I think time bonus needs to be stronger. And I think maybe a lot of the enemies and stuff in this game, I think they maybe award a little bit too many points. But when going forward and like designing levels and designing ranking systems around levels, I think I would want to have these multiple areas for score and not make all of them mandatory, but make some aspects of them or some combination of them mandatory for that score. And again, I don't necessarily mean like the stages have to have these many little playgrounds or many like set piece areas where the score, like a big hunk of score is loaded in this area, so you have to try to, you know, figure out what parts of these. Like, I just mean like in the stage in general. Like if we were to spread that out or just combine all that stuff into one big stage, just like in Sonic Adventure 2, you only really need one of them. As soon as you do that very first beginning part, you can, for the most part, you can kind of ignore everything else and you're still gonna get an A rank. The only aspect of this type of ranking system that I don't necessarily like is that, well, it's not that I don't necessarily like, it's just that the thing that I want the most is I want there to be like the sense of urgency with the S ranks. I want it to be made sure that when you get these points, it shouldn't be like, oh, checking off a box like, okay, I got the points, okay, and I got the time, okay, I won. It should be like a nail biter. Like I think City Escape should be the bar for how easy an A rank is, because Green Forest is too easy. Radical Highway, I think that's a pretty good A rank because I think that's the stage that people accidentally get B rank on all the time. Like there's been plenty of times I thought I played the stage perfectly, but I got that B rank. White Forest is too easy. Skyrail is too easy. Final Chase is surprisingly easy, even though I think it's a difficult stage in general. But once you understand it and you understand like the mechanics, you understand to like not fight against the game, especially like I think to get an A rank in that game, you don't even have to. I feel like I don't even have the stage master. Like I feel like I just learned, okay, these gravity pylons, don't be trying to fight against it, whatever. A lot of times I just let go when the gravity starts dragging me in. I just let go of the stick and it works for me. You know, same like with a lot of gravity places, you know, and Crazy Gadget and things like that. A lot of times when the stuff switches, I just let go of the stick. So I feel like you just play normally on Final Chase. Even though playing normally is hard, if you play normally, you're gonna get an A rank. I guess I'm okay with that if it's a difficult stage, but honestly they could push it a little bit farther. Maybe like City Escape and Final Chase, those should be like the limits of what could give you an A rank. Because on City Escape you do have to play perfectly. It's not as hard to play perfectly on City Escape, and they do have a lot of enemies like on the sides, but they're kind of like distractors. City Escape honestly is a really good A rank because you are in flow state the whole time. You're not doing the stop and go trying to fight all these enemies and doing all this craziness. There are the enemies that you are going to be hitting, but for the most part you never stop moving, and I think that should be emphasized with this stuff. Metal Harbor, you never really stop moving. Green Forest, that's a stage you never stop moving on. Even though you have to get your score, that's how I want it to be, is this, you never stop moving. So now let's conclude this whole discussion, correct? So what do we want from our S ranks? I want an S rank that will force me to engage with the level design, will force me to understand the stage and to be able to master it and to be able to prove mastery of it by interacting with them
all in the fastest and most efficient ways that you possibly can. I want there to be intention behind the devs on their idea of what an A rank is. I don't want them to just throw out a number out there or just throw out a score and just give it to you just for playing the game. I want the devs to have their understanding of what an A rank should be and what mastery looks like to them. And I also want my S rank to allow me to enter the flow state. I want it to feel like I'm playing Sonic Advance 2 almost. Like I don't want to stop, and I want you to try to force me to stop, and I want to push back and try to keep going in any way that I can. If you want that to happen, you have to have a tighter A rank. If you have a very easy A rank that, oh, you can play however you want and you get the A rank. So I do want my freedom, but you kind of have to have me leashed in a little bit. My creativity has to align with the devs as well. I want the devs to be creative and account for my creativity. But on top of that, I still want my creativity to eventually worm my way past theirs too. If you reach one threshold of the two requirements, you get an automatic A rank, I feel. I want games that will allow other people to be creative and strive for mastery. I think you will get a lot more engagement from the player and a lot more people playing the games and replaying the games while not relying on their own intrinsic desires. I want the game to ask me that, and we will continue to ask for the best from Sonic because this is an incredible franchise, incredibly unique type of gameplay that you can't find in many places in the gaming. This conversation is going to be segueing into my conversation about difficulty in Sonic games. This is one little part of it, but I figured this should be a separate discussion from the difficulty conversation. My difficulty video will then segue to my final video of this trilogy. This is all being pushed towards the question of how to truly unify the boost gameplay and the adventure gameplay. We see that with Sonic Frontiers and Shadow Generations. They're kind of going for that like bigger FOV. They're kind of trying to give more control back to the player and trying to satisfy the adventure fans. You see they're experimenting with the spin dash and things of that nature. But there are some fundamental flaws of the boost formula that will not allow that to happen. And there's a way to mesh the two ideas together that I would like to describe in video format. So once again, thank you for watching. You all be blessed, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Oh, I think I just stole the Jaded XV outro. But I'll see y'all, bro.